You ever go away for a while and come back to find that everything has changed? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And not just a little change. I came back to find a neighborhood full of mansions on land that used to be mine. The weirdest part, now they're paying me rent for it. It all started about a year ago, when I decided to take a break from everything and go off-grid for a while. I needed to get away, clear my head, and just focus on myself. I had been living on a piece of land out in the desert for a few years, a small but decent plot. About 6 acres. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No HOA, no neighbors, just peace and quiet. It was a simple life, and I loved it. But when I came back, things were anything but simple. I had sold my place a few years ago. But it was one of those deals where I wasn't really expecting to sell. I didn't exactly need the cash, but it felt like the right decision at the time. I had been struggling with the city life, and the quiet solitude of the land was calling me. When I walked away, I made a handshake agreement with the new buyer, who, as I found out later, was apparently a big shot connected to the local HOA. Honestly, I didn't think much of it. I was planning on heading out of town for a while anyway. I told myself I'd be back in a couple of months, just needed a breather. Life got busy. And before I knew it, a whole year had gone by. I kept in touch with a few friends from the area, but no one mentioned anything strange. I thought, hey, I'm sure it's all good. So, last month, I decided it was time to return. I packed my bags, rented a truck, and headed back. When I hit the town limits, something felt off. The place was quieter than I remembered, and there was this sense of tension in the air. But I didn't think much of it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. As I drove down the familiar dusty road leading to my land, I was hit with a sight I was definitely not prepared for. At first, I thought I was seeing things. There were 2 massive homes standing at the end of my old driveway, behind a tall wooden fence. The homes were brand new, but they didn't look like anything I had ever seen around here. They were modern, with solar panels on the roofs, fancy landscaping, and massive windows that reflected the desert sun. Everything about them screamed luxury and money, and it didn't take long for me to realize something was very wrong. I pulled over to the side of the road and stepped out of the truck. My old land, my 6 acres, was now completely developed. The area I used to walk around in was fenced off, and the sound of a construction crew echoed in the distance. It was as if my place had turned into a whole new neighborhood. I stared at the front gate, which had a new sign on it. It read, Stone Ridge Circle HOA Private Access, Members Only. I was frozen. I didn't know whether to laugh or yell. I mean, what the hell had happened? How could they build mansions here without telling me? I wasn't just some random landowner. I had a right to be here. This was my property. I walked up to the gate, my mind racing. I looked around for any sign of someone I could talk to. A woman in a hard hat was walking near the construction site, so I approached her. "Excuse me," I called out, trying to keep my voice calm. "Can you tell me what's going on here? This is my land." She stopped and looked at me like I was some kind of crazy person. "Sorry, sir. This land is owned by the HOA. You'll have to contact the management office." I couldn't believe it. I wasn't sure if she was just some worker or if she was part of the whole thing, but something told me I wasn't getting any real answers from her. I felt my anger bubbling up, but I took a deep breath. I had to figure out what was going on, and I wasn't going to let some worker stop me. I drove into town and went straight to the HOA office. It wasn't far, but it felt like a lifetime. I was fuming, not knowing how I was going to handle this. When I got to the office, I walked up to the receptionist. "I need to speak with someone in charge. This is urgent." She gave me a neutral smile and gestured for me to sit down. It was like she was already used to people being upset. A few minutes later, A man in a suit came out. He was tall, with glasses, and looked about as corporate as they come. He introduced himself as Greg and asked how he could help. "I'm the previous owner of the land you've built these homes on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How the hell did this happen? You can't just take someone's property like this." Greg's expression didn't change. He simply nodded. "I see. Well, there's a simple explanation for all of this. The land you sold was actually acquired by the HOA, and it's been developed into a private community. All the properties are owned by the HOA, and the people who live there are members." "Acquired," I repeated. "I never sold to the HOA, I sold to a private buyer. This land is mine," he sighed. "It was part of a larger development deal. You may not have been aware, but the HOA has been expanding for the last year. We purchased the land through legal channels. Everything is above board, and if you want to talk to someone about it, you'll need to speak to our legal team." I felt my stomach drop. This was starting to feel like one of those nightmare scenarios. I was standing in front of some guy who was casually telling me that my land was now gone. And I didn't even know how it had happened. They had probably been planning this for a while. There were no signs, no notifications, nothing. I didn't know how to respond. But before I could speak, Greg added, "Now, about the rent." I blinked. "Rent? Did he just say rent?" "Yes," Greg continued, his tone now almost friendly. "You still technically own the land. After all, the original sale wasn't completed in full, and we've been paying rent on the property to keep things in order. We'll pay you a monthly sum for the space, since it's still yours legally." At first, I thought I was hearing things. "Rent for what?" "The land, the homes," I asked him to clarify. And he explained that the HOA had been paying me for the use of my 6 acres ever since they took it over. Apparently, they hadn't been able to finish the paperwork because of some weird legal loophole, and as a result, I was still the rightful owner. They had built the homes on my land, and they had been paying rent to me without me even knowing about it. It was strange. Almost like some sort of corporate scheme to make sure the development went through. But the bottom line was clear. I was getting paid for this mess. I didn't know how to feel. I was angry, yes, but also confused. How had I ended up in this situation? "Why didn't you contact me?" I asked, shaking my head. "I would have known if you were paying rent." "I've been gone for a year." Greg didn't look too concerned. "It's all in the contract. You can look into it. But for now, we're offering you a settlement. Either you continue receiving rent, or we work out a buyout. It's your choice." I left the office that day with more questions than answers. I wasn't sure whether to be angry or grateful. It was all so bizarre, but in the end, I decided to let it play out. I'd been away for a year, and this situation was the result of that absence. I'm still getting rent, by the way. It's not a huge sum, but it's enough to make me think twice about my next move. I'm going to hire a lawyer, of course, but at least, for now, I have the luxury of sitting back and watching the drama unfold. Life is weird sometimes. You think you've left everything behind, and then it turns around and surprises you. Maybe I'll cash out, or maybe I'll just keep collecting that rent for as long as I can. Who knows? But one thing's for sure, I won't be going anywhere again anytime soon.